God does not want us to be ignorant. You see, He wants us to know how He finalizes our salvation. And He wants us to know that in the end, He will stand righteous and just before the entire universe. Now, the final phase of salvation starts with a judgment which is convened in heaven, in the heavenly sanctuary, as we have seen in Daniel 7. The same time is described in Daniel 8 against the backdrop of the Day of Atonement. It is the cleansing of the heavenly sanctuary, and it's the cleansing of a people on earth. So while in heaven the Day of Atonement convenes, on earth we have the proclamation of a final message of truth, a truth about the heavenly high priest, about the heavenly sanctuary, and about the right way of salvation. Now, this end-time message corresponds to the heart of the book of Revelation. There's a call proclaimed by 3 angels. It is this call which is the end-time message given by God's people on earth. We find that in the heart of Revelation in chapters 12 to 14. Now, this message will be important after the prophetic times of Daniel have been fulfilled, as we see from Revelation 10. The connections between Revelation 10 and Revelation 14:6 are obvious. It's also about here proclaiming to the people, the nations, the tribes, and the tongues. And it is called in Revelation 14:6 that this message is an eternal gospel. It's interesting to see that in all of the Johannine writings, the word gospel is only used at this very verse. John seems to reserve that term, gospel, to what comes here when we read about the messages of the 3 angels. Now, what is this eternal gospel all about? It starts with a double call: fear God and give Him glory. The reason to fear God and give Him glory is because the hour of His judgment has come. Now, what does it mean to fear God? It's definitely not about being anxious, to have angst. No, it's more about giving Him praise, proclaim Him and give Him thanksgiving. Indeed, we have here parallelism. Fear God means to give Him glory. In Revelation 15 verse 4, it says, "Who will not fear you, Lord, and," now the parallel, "bring glory to your name." So to fear God is the beginning of wisdom, as the book of Proverbs says. It is the start of having God as the number one in your life. And it is time to have Him as the number one because end time has started. The heavenly judgment convenes. The next call is to worship God, to worship the Creator. Now, Revelation 13 and 14 is all about worship. Now, the dragon, who is Satan, and his 2 allied forces, who are described symbolically here as beasts, the dragon requires worship. He wants the human planet to worship him. In fact, 8 times is it called in Revelation 13 and 14 that one part of these 3 satanic parts are worshipped. And against these 8 calls to worship Satan is this one call to worship God. So this is an important call. Worship God, the Creator, and not the other forces. In fact, it is also about the law of God, the commandments. Satan and his forces attack all of the 10 commandments, except it seems to be the 7th commandment. But then we come to Revelation 14, verse 7. And when we see here that it says, "Worship Him who made the heavens, the earth, and the sea," we are reminded of Exodus chapter 20, of the 4th commandment, where the exact same 4 words are found there: to make heaven, earth, and sea. So the Sabbath commandment is actually the one which expresses the worship of God. If we want to worship God in these end times, the first angel message says, Worship God on the Sabbath day. Proclaim Him, that He is the Lord of all the commandments. The second and the third message shows us then that God is a fair God. He always shows both ways, the way of life and the way to death. In the second and third message, He shows where it leads to when you follow this end-time Babylon, as it is called, another word for that satanic alliance in the end time. It leads to eternal death. It leads to the wrath of God, to the experience that God will give a retributive judgment to you. But God does not want us to follow that way. That's why the first message is so important. At the end of the three messages then, we see another look at the people of God on earth. We have three characteristics mentioned here of this people. First, they have patient endurance. They not just wait until Jesus Christ comes back. They are waiting with action and with deed. They proclaim the message, of course, because if they don't do it, who else will do it? But also, they keep the commandments. They keep it in a way that they uphold them. Not only keeping it like, they do it, but they uphold them in front of the human race. They want the others to see how God is. And they keep the faith of Jesus. It's interesting to note that probably the faith of Jesus is Jesus' own faith. It is His loyalty toward us. In fact, it's Jesus' loyalty at the cross, His loyalty as our high priest, that keeps us saved. That is the reason of our salvation, because Jesus is always true to the cause. He is loyal.